Hi everyone, welcome to the rest of our screencasts for week one. So far, if you are watching this, I'm hoping that you're doing this in the order that I had wanted you to do this in. So if you're watching this screencast, I'm hoping that you've already introduced yourself, at least in your initial post, in the introduction of self discussion board. I also hope that you have taken a look at the Getting Started screencast. Not necessarily. I would hope you watch the Getting Started screencast and introducing yourself. And then I hope that you've also already posted your initial post on the second discussion board where you were supposed to find two definitions of communication. So here we are at the start of this screencast, and if you want to take a look here, I'm hoping that you've done this already. Okay. And if you haven't, I mean, that's okay. I guess I can't really stop you from watching this screencast. But it would help if you went ahead and got your communication definitions. Even if you haven't posted them, it'll help a little bit if you can just have them in front of you so that you can know what I'm talking about. Okay? Because what we're going to do is we are going to take this idea of defining communication and we are going to go deeper. Okay? So one of the things that I find that is interesting about these searches, these fishing trips, I think as I called it in my screencast that I posted prior to this, and you may notice that sometimes my beard goes away and the lighting changes in these screencasts, and sometimes the angle changes. That's because some screencasts I did earlier, some screencasts I've done more recently. The material is still relevant, and the things I say are still what I mean, but the beard may be longer or shorter and the lighting may be different. Okay, but here we are. I want us to go deeper. So if you have those communication definitions, or if you can even just remember, that would be good. One of the things that I see in the themes when people do these searches for communication definitions is these definitions of communication tend to be sort of grouped in sort of the same thing. So most of the time you're going to have something that's like it's going to be a conveying of information, a sharing, a transaction with a sender and a receiver, right? Something like that. And usually it's going to be they're going to be transacting or interacting around information, or they're going to share a thought, they're going to turn a thought into language or body language, and it's usually from one person to another. And those are usually fine. Some of my favorite ones are when my students find the definitions on Urban Dictionary. I don't know if you didn't check out the definitions of communication on Urban Dictionary, you should. Some of them are hilarious. Some of them are not. The one that makes fun of the communications major just goes to show you how little the person actually knows. Communication is what I teach. Communications is something else. That's like mass media and stuff like that, broadcasting. So anyway, maybe it is a jock major. I don't know. There were 0 jocks in the communication major I had. So anyway, not that jocks are bad, but in the definition, that's what they're saying. So these definitions are always really good. They always capture the essence of information interaction, right? Where I have an idea, I've got something I want to say, I have something I want to send you, and I send it to you and you get it. You have to decode it, and that is a good way of understanding communication. But it's a little too on the surface. As we go through our discussion boards, there are good definitions of communication, and the thing though is that it doesn't capture why it's hard, and also if it's just information transfer, these definitions don't even come close to capturing why it's hard, why people refuse to do it, why, how can relationships completely break down because of it, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us a little bit deeper, okay? And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to begin with a quotation. Now, this is something I do in every single class I teach, from this class online to interpersonal face-to-face. My public speaking class has a version of this. My intercultural class has a version of this. My intrapersonal has a version of this. So this is a very important thing that we're about to go through, okay? I need to pause because I need to cough. Okay, I am back after having a little bit of a coughing fit. So let's go deeper. Now, I'm going to show you a quotation, and the quotation is worded weirdly. It is worded weirdly on purpose. It's meant to get us thinking, okay? So here we go. One cannot not communicate. Now, normally in my face-to-face classes, I would say, hey, let's talk about what this is actually trying to say. Rather than us do that, I will just tell you, okay, what it says. What it's saying is that we are always communicating. One cannot not communicate. So it means we have to communicate. It's a part of our human experience. It's got to do with everyday interactions in our lives. And so this one cannot not communicate. At its core, though, it hits all of these things of I have to communicate, I need to communicate. But at the very core, what it's saying is I and you are always communicating. And this is a really interesting idea. I don't know what you think about it, but the idea that we are always communicating is actually something that gets debated a little bit in the communication discipline. There are people in the communication discipline who will say, yeah, we are always communicating all the time. I don't have to send a message on purpose for a message to be received. I don't have to. You don't have to tell me that you're going to send me a message for me not to receive one. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that we can go about this. The other side of the argument is there are people who say, yeah, you know what? I'm not always communicating, because if I'm always communicating, that means that someone can just attach meaning to my behavior, and that's not what I intended. So ultimately, the reason why I like to talk about this quotation is because it gets to the central concept of intent. So intent is extremely important for us to ponder. So the people who are on the side of I'm always communicating say this: I'm always communicating, therefore I don't have to have intent for communication to happen. I do not have to intentionally do something for meaning to be made between the two of us. So it means that you can attach meaning to my behavior, whether or not I intended any sort of behavior toward that or not, and that still counts as communication, okay? And usually these are the people who study nonverbal communication, people who have really looked into different cultural aspects of how we communicate. They're going to say just the way I carry myself, just the way I walk down the hall is actually going to be sending a message. So to say that I am always communicating in another way, it means I'm always sending out messages, okay? I'm always sending them out, and whether or not I mean to or not, I am a beacon of message sending, okay? And then the folks on the other side say, you know, no, I have to have intent for it to be communication. Yeah, meaning can be attached to my behavior, but that's something else. That's not communication. That's something else, okay? I will say that in an interpersonal communication class, these questions of intent are extremely important, okay? So I'm going to walk you through these questions very quickly, and then I'm going to kind of talk to you about the communicative and relational consequences for choosing a side on the intent debate, okay? So, and chances are, by the way, these definitions of communication that you found online had nothing worded in them about intent. So, if they did, good, but in my years of having people do this, it has not ever popped up. So, I'm pretty confident about that, and I would love to be wrong, actually. I would love for it to be out there. But here's the first question. The first question is, does intent matter? And the answer there is yeah. Now, you get to decide how it matters, but we have to talk about it. We have to think about it. We have to ponder it. We have to recognize its presence or lack thereof. We have to figure out what we're going to do with it. We really have to figure out what we're going to do with intent in our interpersonal communication. So, does intent matter? Yes. And from day one here, or I don't know what day it is you're watching this, but week one in the online interpersonal class, we are going to ask questions of intent, okay? Does it matter? Yes, it does. How it matters can differ, but it matters, okay? Next question is, what is the relationship between meaning and intent? What's this relationship between the meanings that are made and our intent or lack thereof? That relationship is extremely important. The space between those two is really, really fruitful ground for us to explore. My guess is that you have been in a situation in your life where you have had to deal with meaning that happened that you did not intend. Right? I'm sure that's happened to you. That's happened to me. That relationship is one you have to dive into, because the next question is, does meaning necessitate intent? That's a no right there, okay? You don't have to have intent for meaning to be made. You do not have to, over and over and over and over again in my own interpersonal relationships, in my career, in my friendships, in my family relationships, I've seen that meaning does not necessitate intent. You are going to deal with meanings that are made in your world, whether or not you intended them to or not. So that's actually a good spot for me to mention some of the ideas and communicative consequences here. I tend to be on the side of I'm always communicating. And here's why. This right here. Meaning does not necessitate intent. I can have meaning happen whether or not I intend it to or not. And the thing is that even if I didn't intentionally do something, I still, and so do you, have to manage the consequences. I still have to deal with when things happen. So for example, I've been married quite a while. I'm approaching 16 years, okay, of being married. So in my 15 and maybe 3/4 now, I don't know, years of being in this relationship, I've learned that I am a hypocrite when it comes to intent. Okay, and here's why. And I actually argue that most of us are. All right, and here it is. When I unintentionally do something that upsets my spouse, I really want intent to matter. And when I unintentionally do something and I upset my spouse, I really want to be able to say, oh, that's not what I intended, and for it to be like, oh, okay, cool, and it all to go away. But that doesn't happen, right? If I unintentionally hurt my spouse's feelings, I still need to apologize. Even though I'm like, I didn't mean to, and by the way, I still have a right to explain that I didn't mean to, right? But I still need to apologize. But remember, I'm a hypocrite, so vice versa. If my spouse unintentionally hurts my feelings or does something to bug me or annoy me, I don't want it to be able to be explained away with just, oh, that's not what I meant, no big deal. I actually still want an apology. I still want some sort of validation of my feelings in that moment, and I would wager we're all this way, okay? Over my many years of teaching, and my numbers just continue to go up. It's kind of weird. I am actually approaching, wait, am I in my 15th year of teaching? Yeah, 15th or 16th year of teaching. I would have to do the math. But 2003 to 2018, whatever that would be. Okay? There you go. Does meaning necessitate intent? No, it does not. And we have to figure out how we manage it in our relationships. And it's a big part of the meanings that get made with what we're doing in our worlds day to day. Okay? So, why does this matter? Okay? Why? Actually, I think I put my slides in the wrong order. I did. I'll come back. Why is this important? This is important because intent gets ascribed, attributed, and assumed onto us in any communicative interaction. Okay? So one of the things that you have to, one of the truths that you have to deal with, however you feel about intent, you have to deal with it, which is why I say I may as well take responsibility for it. If I'm going to have to deal with the consequences, I may as well take responsibility for it, which means I'm always communicating. Intent gets ascribed. Ascribed, there may be a word in here you recognize, and that's scribe. It means, write. So ascribe. Intent gets written onto us from the outside. That's what ascribe means, okay? It's written onto me. Think like a tattoo, okay? We were at a little fair here for the college a little bit ago, and my little girl got a unicorn painted on her forearm, and it was ascribed, okay? It was put onto her from the outside. It gets written onto us. It gets attributed. Attribution is attaching meaning to behavior. People attach intent to your behavior. I'm going to hit pause and continue in the next screencast.